there's a lot of theories again. Yeah. So for those of you who got the time to look at the pre-recording, you guys will see it's pretty much it's a very, very theoretical lecture again. And the first model that we're going to talk about, right, or the first theory, right, is this health belief model, right? In a nutshell, this is just based on my paraphrasal, on my own summary of what this model is like. Essentially, it focuses a lot on perceptions of healthy behaviors, and then the last stage, right, is really the cue for action relates to every person's willingness for engagement, right? Whether you want to engage in such healthy behaviors. And then this protection motivation theory of health, right? It is just an upgraded version of health belief model, right? This is just health belief model version 2. And likewise, we have later on we have this theory of planned behavior, right? Again, it involves self-efficacy, and for me, I just see it as version 2, advanced version of the theory of reason action, right? And the theory of reason action is much more interesting, right? Because it involves social psychological concepts like this attitudes and subjective norms. So in the slide ahead, right, I just want to give everybody a clear definition of what attitudes is, of what attitudes are, right? And how do you distinguish attitude from belief, right? There is a very subtle difference, right? Similarly for subjective norms, okay? How do we distinguish subjective norms from social norms, from group norms, right? It's something to take note of, very important as well, right? All right, so this is this health belief model, right, from a pre-recording, from a textbook, and then you guys basically you can see like 4 components, right? There's this so-called perceived susceptibility, right, and then we have this perceived severity, all right, and then the more applied version is like you'll be thinking about the benefits and barriers, right, for you to kind of take on engage in this behavior or avoid this behavior, right? And then the last thing is that we have this cues to action, right? So this is more like the kind of practical bit, right? And then we're really looking at external cues, and sometimes the cues can be offered by family members as well, right? Yeah. So let me just go through everything one by one again, right? So susceptibility, right? So this is how your perception, all right? So how prone will you be, right, to getting a particular illness, a particular disease, right? If you assume a certain kind of harmful behavior, right? Yeah. So this is the first consideration, and then the second one is how severe, right, would that particular illness, would that particular disease be, if I kind of engage in it, right? Yeah. And then this is really something like educational, right, related to our knowledge of health, right, or medicine. Yeah. And then the third part, benefits and barriers, this is the easiest, right? The easiest, right? So it's like, what is kind of, benefiting me, right? If I keep on engaging in such behavior, what are the things I will keep on gaining? And then if I couldn't really gain any health benefits, what are the things that are stopping me from, stopping this harmful behavior, right? So these are all considerations as well. So these 3 stages, all these 3 components, is you can see them as a kind of 3 stages, right? 3 stages of health contemplation. And then the last one is basically calling to action, right? Cues to action, and all those cues, the kind of motivators, right? They can't happen externally. Usually they happen, and they can happen socially, right? And they can also happen internally, right? If there's some bodily discomfort, and then you really feel it's time to let it go, right? It's really, really time to quit smoking, for instance, right? And then later on, so we have this, enhanced model, right? This version 2, right? Health belief model version 2, protection motivation theory that involves self-efficacy, right? Yeah. So the next slide, okay, before I go on, okay, I just want to refresh everybody's memory on self-efficacy, right? So I just want to let everybody know we have a lot of questionnaire measuring self-efficacy, but the general consensus is always that it is a person's belief, right, in his or her ability to successfully, right? The keyword is successfully, right? Undertake a particular action or behavior. And then, to be self-efficacious, we're always asking ourselves this set of questions. Can I do it, right? Can I quit smoking in this instance, right? Can I successfully alter my current, health behavior, right? Any kind of risky, harmful behavior, am I capable of altering them, right? So these are the set of questions you ask yourself, right? And now, okay, let's look at the next 2 theories, okay? So this series of reasoned action, TRA, and this theory of planned behavior, TPB, right? Yeah. And again, right, just like the previous theory, right, health belief model, right, upgrade to become protection motivation theory. And likewise, we incorporate self-efficacy to upgrade the theory of reasoned action into the theory of planned behavior. Yeah, so you can see this self-efficacy is extremely important, right? If you want to motivate somebody, if a person want to motivate himself or herself into action, right? So it's like the catalyst for positive action. So before I go on, I just want to talk a little bit about this so-called attitude, right? So how do you distinguish attitude from belief, right? For me, these two concepts, these two terminologies, they overlap strongly with each other, except from the fact that when you talk about attitude, you're talking about practical beliefs. You want a certain concrete outcome, right? So in this situation, you are seeking a positive outcome, right? Like if you want to quit smoking, definitely I want something that's very positive to happen to me, right? I no longer I want to, have that kind of addictive mindset, right? I also do not really want to experience any kind of thirst. When I got this, this sudden this craving, right? Craving for cigarettes. Yeah. So it's really about taking action, taking positive action, being practical minded, and that is when you have attitude, right? And now when we look at this subjective norms, right? So subjective, we all know what it means, right? It's individual based, it's totally personal, right? So however, before we actually acquire anything that is subjective, there are always group norms, interpersonal norms, or societal norms out there that we are aware of. And if we kind of agree with such norms, we will utilize such norms to establish our own subjective norms. So in other words, our individual subjective norms, they're not totally divorced, right, from the opinions of other people, right, opinions of society, right? I mean, it usually it tends to be kind of reinforced, right, by all those external parties. So just take note of that, right? And it's when you have this combination, right, attitude, right, towards helpful behavior, and then combined with subjective norms, and that is when you try to kind of develop, right? You come to develop this intention, right? You become conscious, of the importance of a certain health behavior, and then and from that, you would kind of decide with the assistance of self-efficacy, you will want to decide whether you want to engage in such changes. So this is, in a nutshell, this is how these two sets of theories work together, right?